Fun fact, did you know that people in Monaco on average make $186,000 a year? That's a lot of money. But did you also know people from Pakistan make only $1,400 a year? Look at this. Huge difference, big gap. But the real question that we're gonna ask ourselves and answer in this video is, around 200 years ago, there was this guy, Adam Smith, big brain, big belly. He wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations and basically answered what makes a nation wealthy. What's the measurements that we should use to determine how wealthy a nation is back then. The book was like the OG guide of how money, trade, and countries actually work, because back in the day, nobody really knew, you know? We still don't know, but we know better. But before we start talking about the book, I like to talk about the guy a bit more first, because it's very important to know his perspective and how in the past days people were thinking, in what environment he was under influence of who or what he might have been to be able to create such a beautiful masterpiece. Let's just start his timeline. And I like to start it before he was born, a few months before he was born, because something important happens that changes his whole life forever. It's the summer of 1723, and Adam Smith's dad, also Adam Smith, passes away. And a bit later, June 5th, 1723, Mrs. Smith goes into labor and she names her son after her late husband. So baby Adam Smith grows up in this small, little, beautiful town called Kirkcaldy. And during his itty-bitty years, he was described as a quiet, nice, and curious kid. A little bit of time passes, and our little Adam grows up to be 14. It's the year 1737. Despite all the hardships, little Adam goes to the University of Glasgow at age 14. And because econ courses weren't offered back in the day at University of Glasgow, or as far as I know in any other university, he chooses to study moral philosophy. And if you don't know what moral philosophy is, it's literally the study of humans. How humans think, how they behave, what's right or wrong, how societies should be organized, and how we as humans treat each other. Anyway, after 3 years of moral philosophy, our little Adam graduates, gets his degree, and goes to study again at University of Oxford this time. But during his years at Oxford, he realizes one annoying thing that is worth mentioning here. So he goes to Oxford at 17, spends a lot of years there. He realizes that Oxford professors were paid no matter what. So they did a good job, they're getting paid. They don't do a good job, they're getting paid. And this really annoys Smith. He actually wrote that Oxford professors had given up even the pretense of teaching. Anyway, he was thinking the teaching over there is just lazy and not so good. But that didn't stop him from reading all the books there was to read, and he did gain a lot of knowledge and experience from Oxford as well. And a few years later, in 1746, he returns home to his mom, someone that highly educated, smart, and driven. You would think they're gonna get a job really quick after they graduate, right? No, it doesn't happen to Adam Smith. He actually takes some years off. While he's taking years off, not working, he reads, writes, he thinks a bit more. And here he's basically building the mental groundwork for what will become his future masterpiece. Anyhow, the years pass and he's just living life, you know? His mama makes him haggis every Wednesday night, every Saturday night's out with the boys, and finally, enough's enough. He lands his first big boy job. He becomes a prof. He becomes a prof where he studied himself when he was 14. University of Glasgow. It's the year 1751, and he's a fresh young professor at the University of Glasgow. He starts by teaching logic at first. Then, slowly, he moves toward what he loves, moral philosophy. Legend goes that his lectures were so fire that his students just went to the lecture halls 15 minutes early, didn't eat lunch just to be able to digest what was happening in the classroom. Then in 1759, he publishes his first big book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, which I recommend you read if you're into human nature, philosophy, ethics, and stuff. After releasing The Theory of Moral Sentiments, his reputation gets so good, something huge happens for him. In 1763, this rich, powerful British politician hits him up like, "Hey Adam, I need a favor. Yeah Adam, I got this annoying teenage stepson. He's the 3rd Duke of Buccleuch. Rich, titled, kind of a big deal. Can you take him on a grand tour of Europe for a couple of months or, I don't know, maybe years? We pay you money, by the way. Pay you a lot of money. I mean, a pension yearly. £300.
Did you make that deal?
I'd make that deal.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
So Adam and the little young Duke set sail and they go to Europe. So again, why was this a huge deal? He gets his hand on some money, £300 a year. Now he can focus on his own nerdy stuff and not work at Glasgow. Also, he gets to see more of the big-brained, powdered-wigged thinkers of his time, and he soaks up fresh ideas about economics, trade, financial markets. And finally, going to that Europe tour, he understands and literally sees how different European governments run their country and what things are going well, what things are not going well. And finally, the Duke's brother kind of gets sick, probably dies. He dies, and they get called back home and goes back to Scotland, Kirkcaldy, back to his mom. So he's back home. What to do now? I'm an experienced guy. I've seen the world now. I have money now. I have free time. What would someone like me do? Well, they probably do whatever nerdy things they like to do, like studying economics, like making the first draft and graph of supply and demand. Picks up his pen or whatever he was using back then and starts creating, writing Wealth of Nations. And from what we have today, he stays low-key and kind of focused for about 10 years, cooking up what will become a guiding book for the economists today. See, Adam Smith was a fascinating guy. He's the father of capitalism, but he's awful with money. Never wanted to be rich. He just didn't care about money. He's genius level smart, but also kind of absent-minded and awkward, with a little ADHD and autism here and there. Despite all his curiosity about human behavior and emotion, he didn't really participate in it himself. The legend goes that he was often awkward in social situations, not very expressive and completely absorbed in his own thoughts. One time he just walked and walked, just deep in thoughts, and it was until he was 16 miles away from his mama's house that he realized where he was and what has happened. And this is actually a true story. It's recorded in history. The other time, he literally fell into a tanning pit while he was talking to someone and just was lost in the conversation. Like, the dude was obsessed with logic, but he was also very emotional. Maybe he just had a hard time communicating his emotions, but we can tell he was super emotional by just looking at his writings. In his first big book, The Theory of Moral Sentiment, he literally says, "Man naturally desires not only to be loved, but to be lovely. He naturally dreads not only to be hated, but to be hateful, or to be that thing
which is the natural and proper object of hatred. He desires not only praise, but praiseworthiness, or to be that thing which thought it should be praised by nobody, is, however, the natural and proper object of praise. Wow. He believed human sympathy, aka how we feel each other's pain and emotions, was just as important as logic itself. Hate capitalism as much as you want, but this guy, the father of capitalism, he acknowledged and argued that some meaning's going to be lost once you take away meaningful jobs and just give a person one task, very simple task to do, absent-mindedly, turning men into machine. And he warns us about the future of capitalism. Like, I don't know about you guys, but he's a fascinating guy to me. A person who devotes his whole life to understand humans, human behavior, human emotions, and literally writes books and teaches about all those stuff, lives with his mom his whole life, and never gets involved in any romantic relationships. Anyway, in the year 1776, he finally drops his masterpiece, the topic of our video, The Wealth of Nations. So The Wealth of Nations, it talks about, I'm not going to tell you yet. You need to have perspective, more perspective. You need to know the basics in the situation of the era and the time this guy was living. First, I'd like to put the year Adam Smith released his book in contrast with other major events. It's the year 1776, and like always, the world is a mess and everything is changing fast, super fast. For the first time since humanity, the normal pace is broken, and we were just ready for that change. So let's zoom out and see where we are in our timeline, in humanity's timeline. The year 1776 is about 300,000 years after Homo sapiens. That's us. About 4,000 years after the Great Pyramids were built. About 300 years after the Renaissance. Da Vinci, Shakespeare, those guys. 270 years after Columbus. 73 years after Isaac Newton published his big book. And just around that time, James Watt upgrades the steam engine, boosting the Industrial Revolution. Now what's to come after 1776? It's 28 years before Napoleon's reign, 31 years before the abolition of the slave trade in Britain, 103 years before Edison introduced the light bulb, and only 193 years before the moon landing. Alright, now I need you to lock in for this part, because this part is important. If you need, just rewind, watch it again, listen to it again if you're just listening to the podcast. Because here I'm going to ask a huge question, and yes, I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to answer it short. Why Adam Smith, a Scottish philosopher, in the year 1776 publishes The Wealth of Nations? Why does it take us humans this much time to realize what is actually the source of our nation's wealth? Like everybody already knew, if you want to increase something or get better at something or kind of organize a thing, you need to measure it first. And for measurement, you need units of measuring stuff. But why did nobody else before Adam Smith talk about all these important, kind of simple looking stuff? The answer is this: we were just ready. See, in the old days, the emperors did not know what wealth was. In those older empires, wealth came from land, conquests, and slaves, not trade, not factories, and definitely not markets. They were smart, no question, but they lacked key ingredients, and that is the incentive to freaking move. There were no incentives. Remember when we talk about the profs at Oxford that Adam Smith didn't really like because they didn't go to the lectures and taught their students? Because they didn't have any incentives. If they didn't go to the lecture, guess what? They're still getting paid. They still would survive. And in the old days, the incentives for the poor was to be able to survive, and for the rich to survive off of the point. In the old days, people in power owned land. They had farmers work on that land and pay them most of their earnings. And they would pocket half the money and send the other half to the ruler or the emperor of the day. And they either hoard it or spend it on useless things, and there are no incentives to work better because, hey, if you do a better job at farming, guess what? The king will have more money, more goods, or things to spend your money on. But in a capitalistic society, you let people keep more of what they earn. And then boom, incentive. Then boom, dynamic markets. Okay, that's good. So another question for you, so you can think a bit more. Why was Britain the heart of the Industrial Revolution? The answer to that goes back a couple of hundred years before Adam Smith. See, one of the key events that built the scene for industrialization in Britain was the enclosure movement, aka land reforms. In Britain, back in the day, land was just mostly shared, like a big, messy backyard for everybody in the village. But most farmers worked under a fiducial system, and they paid rent or gave part of their crops to the landowner. Now, the enclosure movement in Britain started in the 1500s, and then really picked up in the 1700s. And the British government started enclosing land, meaning they drew borders, built fences, passed laws and said, this land now belongs to this person, privately, period. Now owning land meant something. You could farm it better, invest in it, and make money from it. Farming went from survival mode to business mode. Now you plan long term. Now you have incentive to go from a farmer's kid to a freaking king. And what happened to all the small farmers who got kicked off or sold their land? They went to the cities to fuel the industries and trade their time for services. This was one of the big reasons Britain became a leader in the Industrial Revolution. I don't doubt that Smith already knew this and probably studied it and talked about it with the huge Enlightenment thinkers of his time. Now, what Adam Smith said to the question, what makes a nation wealthy? He explains, a nation's wealth is the total amount of goods and services they can produce and consume. Simple as that. Now that we have a good understanding of Adam Smith, his era, and what led to the Industrial Revolution really picking up in Britain, let's talk about Wealth of Nations and its key point. The Wealth of Nations has 4 major points. Smith's first major discovery was the power of the division of labor. Now that we have a workforce that is not just farmers, how are we gonna put them to work? I like to explain with an example from myself. Imagine an ex-farmer who loves baking. They stopped the farm work after selling their land. Remember the land reforms? And then with the money they got, they bought a little tiny store. And now they could open a bakery. So the bakery gets opened and people buy bread from them. As months or perhaps years go by, they get better at it. They nail the art, meaning they can do it faster, better, and cheaper. They make the best bread in town, and what happens next is more and more people choose to buy from them instead of making it at home. Why? Because the same reason when you go to Walmart and you want chips, you just don't go buy potatoes and peel them. Also, you gotta buy the oil and already have a pan and a working kitchen and have the time to chop the potatoes very thin and then cook them and then consume them, salt them. Takes time, takes energy, and you're probably not good at it. The potatoes not gonna turn out good. You can even burn them and lose some money there. But buying it from someone who does it very well, now that's a trade I'm willing to do. So people keep buying bread and pastries from the bakery, and the bakery grows, and they can hire more people to again divide and conquer better. One person makes the dough, the other one deals with the customers, one person bakes them, the other one takes care of the buying flowers and the ingredients. That way, instead of making 100 units of pastry, they can scale and now make 10,000 units a day. Adam Smith argued with the proper division of labor. Speed goes up, you're not switching tools or changing tasks. You just get really fast at your one thing. Mistakes go down. You become a pro at the one thing you do. Fewer mess-ups. Creativity goes up. Because when you do one thing all day, you naturally think, how can I do this faster? And you might invent better tools or methods. Costs go down. You make more of the stuff with less effort, and you can sell them for cheaper. And because you sell them for cheap, people are gonna buy it from you because you're offering a good product at a cheap price. And guess what? The business just grows. Hopefully that makes sense, because here's the second major discovery Adam Smith mentions in his book, and this one's kind of fascinating. It's called the invisible hand. Smith said if people just do what's best for them, like chase their own money, they end up helping society even without trying, without meaning to. Just like our example. You start a bakery shop to make money, you make fire bread, people eat, you profit, you're fed, they're fed, everybody's happy. Nobody told you what to do. Nobody asked or forced you to do this particular job. Just wanted money. But you ended up helping the society. And the government didn't even get involved here.
Guess what? It grows the economy.
Anyway, Adam Smith's third big idea was just free the market. Don't control everything. Just let people trade. Don't put restrictions or tariffs or sanctions or the things that don't let people do or get what they want. Believe in the market. The market will fix itself. Adam Smith wasn't like, screw the government. He was more like, hey, government, just, stay in your own lane. Let people buy, sell, trade. And if they're not a monopoly, people can choose who they want to buy their stuff from. So here's the thing. Without kings setting prices or governments throwing red tape on imports like it's just a hobby they have, then the market would just eventually find its equilibrium. And it's in the equilibrium that we have the most efficiency. And Smith actually talked a lot about this phenomena of free market with Uncle Ben. Not that Uncle Ben. This Uncle Ben. Fake dollars. Anyway, Ben Franklin was a big and huge supporter of free markets. Now this is kind of the opposite of what the communist idea is. They believe in more central government control. The government has a lot of control. They believe if the government controls everything and doesn't let individual businesses exist and actually provide value and operate in the way that the capitalist societies do, they would be better off. They will be fair. They would have equality. But they ended up noticing that in application, it's sort of impossible. The Soviet Union is a prime example why communism doesn't actually work. However, some people might argue and be like, that wasn't the right communism. And actually, they might have a point. I'm not sure. I'm actually researching about this. And I'm gonna soon have a video about Marx's Communist Manifesto. And if you're interested in these kind of stuff, please just make sure to subscribe. Maybe while you're at it, just drop a like over there too. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching this far. Anyway, let's continue. So just to wrap up all the points that Adam Smith had in Wealth of Nations, the 4 points were division of labor, the invisible hand, the power of free markets, and the role of government. Now we're getting kind of close to the ending of our video about Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Now, the reason why Adam Smith and his book, The Wealth of Nations, were so influential in the history is what they influence. They influence the forefathers of the United States, a country that will form the very year the book gets published. And we already talked about one of the forefathers being in contact with Smith, and they were just exchanging their Enlightenment ideas and all. However, there's this other dude who helps write the Constitution, that also learns a lot and gets influenced a lot by Adam Smith. He was the right hand of George Washington, first of his command, the father of American Treasury, the immigrant who got the job done, the dude whose face is on the $10 bill, Alexander Hamilton. So Hamilton reads The Wealth of Nations, and obviously he gets inspired from it, because we can see it in the Constitution. When the US was just getting started, he basically asked, how do we build a rich country from scratch? And Adam Smith literally gave him the cheat codes. Hamilton's financial plans, national banks, supporting manufacturing, encouraging trade, all had echoes of Smith's thinking. They believed in individual liberty, free enterprise, private property, and limited government. Sound familiar? Yeah, all Adam Smith. Don't forget, the book Wealth of Nation dropped the same year the American Revolution happened. Coincidence? Maybe.